This isn't just a watch. It's your confession.
The hotel room in Portland felt like a tomb at 11 p.m., all beige walls and recycled air that tasted like disappointment. I propped my laptop on the scratchy comforter and hit the video call button, needing to hear Elise's voice after a day of mind-numbing police conference seminars about community policing in the digital age. "Hey, babe," I said when her face filled the screen, that familiar smile that had hooked me 22 years ago still doing something to my chest. "Miss me yet?" "Always," she laughed, but something felt off. Her eyes kept darting away from the camera, and she was wearing that silk blouse I'd bought her for Christmas, at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. "How's the conference?" "About as exciting as watching paint dry in slow motion. Bunch of chiefs talking about body cams like they invented fire." I leaned back against the headboard, studying her face. 20 years as a detective teaches you to read micro-expressions, and Elise was broadcasting nervous energy like a neon sign. "You okay? You seem jumpy." "Just tired from work. Big presentation tomorrow for the Henderson account." She stood up from our bed, and I caught a glimpse of something that made my blood freeze. There, on my side of the nightstand, sat a red-faced Rolex Submariner, the kind that costs more than my annual salary. The kind I definitely didn't own. "Nice new clock, babe," I said, keeping my voice light while my detective brain started cataloging details. "When did we get that fancy timepiece?" Elise's laugh came out too sharp, too quick. "Oh, that old thing? Found it at a garage sale, thought it looked nice." She moved to block the camera's view of the nightstand. "Probably fake anyway." "Old thing?" That watch looked like it had never seen a day of honest work. And Elise Bishop, creative director at Haynes & Associates, wouldn't be caught dead at a garage sale. She bought her coffee at boutique shops that charged $8 for what most people called a latte. "Right," I said. "Well, I guess Santa shops at yard sales now." "Tom, you're being weird. It's just a clock." Just a clock. My wife of 18 years was calling a $5,000 Rolex just a clock and expecting me to buy it. The same woman who researched dishwashers for 3 months before making a purchase was now impulse buying luxury watches at garage sales. "You're right, sorry. Long day." I forced a smile. "I should let you get some sleep. Love you." "Love you too. Drive safe tomorrow." The screen went black, but I kept staring at it. In the reflection, I could see my own face. 42 years old, graying at the temples, crow's feet that came from squinting at crime scenes and liars. Right now, I looked like a man who'd just been sucker punched. I opened my laptop's browser and logged into the department's remote access system. One of the perks of being a detective, I could check our neighborhood's traffic cameras from anywhere. Just routine security, I told myself, making sure everything was normal at home while I was away. The timestamp showed 9:47 p.m. 2 nights ago. There was my house, quiet and dark except for the bedroom light. And there, pulling into my driveway like he owned the place, was a silver BMW X5. License plate clear as day. Haynes 1, Carter Haynes, my wife's boss. I sat back in that cheap hotel chair and felt something cold settle in my stomach. Carter Haynes, 45 years old, CEO of Haynes & Associates, the kind of guy who wore $1,000 suits and had his teeth professionally whitened. The kind of guy who probably owned multiple Rolexes. The kind of guy who was apparently comfortable enough in my house to leave his watch on my nightstand. I picked up my phone and dialed the airline. "Hi, I need to cancel my return flight tomorrow and book the earliest one out tonight." "Sir, it's almost midnight. The earliest flight would be—" "Whatever you have. I need to get home." 20 minutes later, I was throwing clothes into my suitcase with hands that wanted to shake but wouldn't let themselves. Tom Bishop didn't shake. Tom Bishop investigated. Tom Bishop gathered evidence and built cases and took down lying, cheating pieces of garbage one careful step at a time. But first, Tom Bishop was going to have a little chat with his loving wife. I called George and Linda Hartwell, Elise's parents, from the airport at 5 a.m. "Tom?" Linda's voice was thick with sleep. "Is everything all right? Where are you?" "Just landed in Boston. Thought I'd surprise Elise with breakfast. You know how she loves those blueberry pancakes from Sullivan's. Want to join us? Make it a family thing?" "Oh, how sweet. George, wake up. Tom's making breakfast for Elise." I could hear the genuine warmth in her voice, and it made what I was about to do feel even more necessary. "We'll be there in an hour." "Perfect. Don't call ahead. I want it to be a surprise." The drive home took 43 minutes. I used every one of them to plan what I was going to say, how I was going to handle this. By the time I pulled into my driveway, right next to that silver BMW X5, I was calm. Detective calm. The kind of calm that comes right before you kick down a door. I let myself in through the front door as quietly as possible. The house smelled like coffee and something else, expensive cologne that definitely wasn't mine. From upstairs, I could hear voices, Elise's laugh, a deeper voice responding. They were in my kitchen. I walked up those stairs like I was approaching a crime scene, each step deliberate and silent. At the top, I could see into the kitchen through the doorway. Elise was there in a silk robe, my Christmas gift robe, leaning against the counter. And there was Carter Haynes, wearing my Harvard Police Academy t-shirt and a pair of boxers, making coffee with my French press, making himself right at home. I checked my watch. 6:47 a.m. The in-laws would be here in 13 minutes. "Morning, honey," I called out, stepping into the kitchen doorway. "I'm home early." The coffee mug slipped from Carter's hand and shattered on the tile floor. Elise went white as paper, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. "Tom," she gasped. "I thought, I said a lot of things." I looked at Carter, who was standing there in my shirt like a deer in headlights. "Morning, Carter. Nice shirt. Looks familiar." "This isn't," Carter started. "What it looks like," I finished. "Funny thing about being a detective, Carter. I've heard that line about 1,000 times, usually from people who are guilty as heck." I walked to the coffee maker, stepping around the broken mug. "By the way, you might want to get dressed. Elise's parents will be here any minute. I invited them for breakfast." "You what?" Elise's voice came out as a squeak. "Surprise family breakfast. Your mom was so excited." I poured myself coffee from the pot Carter had been making, took a sip. "Not bad. You make good coffee, Carter. Too bad you can't make good choices." The sound of a car in the driveway made everyone freeze. "That'll be George and Linda," I said cheerfully. "Carter, I'd suggest the back door, unless you want to explain to your employee's parents why you're wearing her husband's clothes." Carter grabbed his suit from the kitchen chair, wrinkled now, expensive fabric that probably cost more than most people's rent, and bolted for the sliding door to the deck. "Don't forget your watch," I called after him, pulling the red Rolex from my pocket. I'd taken it from the nightstand on my way upstairs. "Wouldn't want you to lose track of time." I threw it at his head. It bounced off his shoulder and clattered across the deck. "Tom, please," Elise whispered. "Let me explain." "Oh, you'll get your chance to explain right about now, actually." The front door opened and Linda's voice called out, "Elise, Tom, we brought orange juice." The next hour was a masterpiece of awkward theater. Elise scrambled upstairs to get dressed while I made small talk with George and Linda about the weather, the Red Sox, anything except the fact that their daughter had just been caught in silk pajamas with her boss at 7 in the morning. "Where's Elise?" Linda asked, setting a container of fresh orange juice on the counter. "I thought she'd be down here cooking already. You know how she is about her presentations." "She'll be right down, just getting herself together." I started pulling ingredients from the fridge. "So, George, how's the retirement treating you?" "Can't complain. Been working on that deck project I mentioned. Linda keeps finding new things for me to build." George was a good man, 30 years as an accountant, honest as the day was long. He deserved better than what was about to happen to his family. Elise appeared 15 minutes later, showered and dressed in her power suit, makeup perfect except for the slight tremor in her hands as she poured coffee. "Mom, Dad, what a nice surprise," she said, kissing their cheeks. "Tom didn't mention you were coming." "He wanted to surprise you," Linda beamed. "Isn't that sweet? Flying home early just to make you breakfast before your big presentation." "Sweet," Elise repeated, shooting me a look that could have cut glass. "That's my Tom, full of surprises." We made it through breakfast without anyone losing their cool. George told stories about his deck project. Linda updated us on neighborhood gossip. Elise pushed pancakes around her plate and checked her phone every 30 seconds. I played the devoted husband, asking about her presentation, wondering if she needed a ride to work. "No," she said quickly. "I mean, I have my car, and I need to get there early, lots to prepare." "Of course, big day at Haynes & Associates." The name made her flinch. After her parents left, Elise and I stood in the kitchen, the silence stretching between us like a tripwire. "Tom," she started. "How long?" "What?" "How long, Elise? How long have you been screwing your boss in our bed?" She flinched like I'd slapped her. We're not. Cut the crap." My voice stayed level. Professional. I saw the traffic cam footage. Carter's car has been here at least 6 times in the past month, always when I'm working late or out of town, so I'll ask again, how long? Her shoulders sagged. For a moment, she looked older than her 40 years. 3 months. 3 months, I nodded, filing that information away. Since the Henderson account started? All those late nights at the office, all those weekend strategy sessions? Tom, please, it just happened. We were working late and what? His Johnson accidentally fell into you? Come on, Elise, you're a smart woman. Don't insult both of us with that garbage. You don't understand. You're never here, always working, always putting the job first. Carter listens to me. He makes me feel important, special. Let me guess. He tells you that you're brilliant, that you deserve better than a small-town cop who doesn't appreciate your talents. The look on her face told me I'd hit the bullseye. Classic affair playbook, I continued. Rich boss seduces married employee by making her feel undervalued at home. Probably told you I was holding you back, right? That you could do better? Stop it. Did he promise to leave his wife? Oh, wait, Carter's not married. That makes it easier, doesn't it? No messy divorce, just a simple upgrade from the blue-collar husband to the executive suite. Tom, please. Please, what? Please, pretend I didn't see what I saw. Please act like everything's normal while you're carrying on with your boss. I set my coffee mug down carefully, fighting the urge to throw it against the wall. Tell me something, Elise. Were you ever going to tell me, or were you just going to keep lying until I figured it out? She didn't answer, which was answer enough. Right. Well, here's what's going to happen. You're going to work today, and you're going to act normal. And tonight, when you get home, we're going to have a real conversation about what comes next. What do you mean? I mean, I'm not going to be played for a fool in my own house. You made your choice, Elise. Now you get to live with the consequences. She left for work 20 minutes later, her hands still shaking as she backed out of the driveway. I watched from the kitchen window, then picked up my phone and called the station. Ray, it's Tom. I need a favor. Detective Ray Kowalski had been my partner for 8 years. He was the kind of cop who could find dirt on a saint if you gave him enough time and motivation. What's up, Bishop? Thought you were at that conference until tomorrow. Change of plans. Listen, I need you to run a background check on someone. Carter Haynes, CEO of Haynes & Associates Advertising. The rich guy with all the billboards? Well, what's he done? Let's just say he's been conducting some unauthorized business in my neighborhood. I want to know everything. Finances, legal troubles, parking tickets, unpaid library fines. Everything. You got it. Give me a couple hours. My next call was to Jack, my 20-year-old son. He was a sophomore at UMass Boston, studying computer science and occasionally remembering to call his old man. Dad, what's up? Isn't it kind of early? Jack, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be straight with me. Has your mother been acting differently lately? New clothes, new habits, anything unusual? There was a long pause. Dad, is everything okay? Just answer the question, son. Well, she has been dressing up more, new perfume, and she's been working late a lot, like a lot. Kayla mentioned it too, said Mom was never around for dinner anymore. Kayla, my 18-year-old daughter, high school senior, Daddy's little girl who thought her mother hung the moon. This was going to destroy her. Thanks, Jack. One more thing. Don't mention this conversation to your mother or sister, okay? Not yet. Dad, you're scaring me. What's going on? I'll explain everything soon. Just trust me for now. I spent the rest of the morning cleaning the house, doing laundry, normal domestic tasks that felt surreal under the circumstances. Every time I touched something, our wedding photos, Elise's coffee mug, the throw pillows she'd picked out last spring, I wondered how long she'd been living this double life. Ray called back at 2 p.m. Your boy Carter's got some interesting financial habits, he said without preamble. 3 credit cards maxed out, mortgage payments 60 days behind, and he's been using company funds for personal expenses. Nothing criminal yet, but definitely skating on thin ice. What kind of personal expenses? Gym membership, spa treatments, expensive dinners. The kind of stuff you'd spend money on if you were trying to impress someone. Also, Tom, his company's got an HR department, right? Yeah. Why? Because using corporate funds to wine and dine employees is a fireable offense at most places, especially if there's a romantic component. I smiled for the first time in 12 hours. Ray, you beautiful bastard. Email me everything you found. Already done, Tom. Whatever this guy did to you, be careful. Rich guys like Carter have expensive lawyers. Don't worry about me. I'm just gathering information. After I hung up, I sat in my home office, the spare bedroom where I kept my case files and Elise kept her craft supplies, and started planning. Not revenge, exactly. Justice. There's a difference, and the difference matters. Carter Haynes thought he could waltz into my life, seduce my wife, and walk away without consequences. He thought being rich and powerful meant he was untouchable. He was about to learn otherwise. But first I had to deal with the hardest part, telling my kids that their parents' marriage was over, and their mother wasn't the woman they thought she was. Jack drove down from Boston that evening. Kayla came home from her after-school job at the local bookstore. We sat around the kitchen table, the same table where we'd shared thousands of family dinners. And I told them the truth. Jack took it like I expected. Angry, hurt, but not surprised. I knew something was wrong, he said. She's been different, distracted, like she was living somewhere else in her head. Kayla's reaction was pure devastation. You're lying, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. Mom wouldn't do that. She loves you. She loves us. She does love you, sweetheart. This isn't about you and Jack. This is between your mother and me. But why? Why would she? Kayla couldn't finish the sentence. I don't know, baby. Sometimes people make choices that don't make sense to anyone else. Elise came home at 9 p.m. to find all three of us waiting in the living room. She took one look at Jack's angry face and Kayla's tear-stained cheeks and knew the conversation she'd been dreading was about to happen. You told them, she said. They deserve to know the truth. Mom, Kayla stood up, her voice breaking. Tell Daddy's wrong. Tell him it's not true. Elise looked at our daughter, our beautiful, innocent daughter who still believed in fairy tales and happy endings, and I watched her face crumble. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. That's when Kayla ran upstairs and slammed her bedroom door hard enough to shake the house. The next 3 days passed in a blur of lawyers, bank statements, and uncomfortable silences. Elise moved into the guest bedroom, claiming she needed space to think. I let her have it. Thinking was good. Thinking meant she might realize the magnitude of what she'd thrown away. Jack stayed home from classes, appointing himself as my unofficial bodyguard and emotional support system. Kayla barely spoke to either of us, dividing her time between her room and long walks around the neighborhood. On Thursday morning, my phone rang while I was getting ready for work. Tom, it's Harper Williams from Haynes & Associates HR department. I knew Harper by reputation. Elise had mentioned her a few times, usually in the context of office politics and personality conflicts. Apparently, Harper and Carter had a history of professional disagreements. What can I do for you, Harper? I was wondering if we could meet for coffee. There are some things about your wife's situation that you should know. We met at Sullivan's Diner, the same place where I'd planned to surprise Elise with breakfast 4 days earlier. Harper was a sharp-dressed woman in her 50s with the kind of direct gaze that suggested she didn't suffer fools gladly. I'm going to be straight with you, Tom. Carter Haynes is a predator. Your wife isn't his first affair, and she won't be his last. How many others? That I know of, 3 in the past 5 years, all married employees, all women he had power over. The pattern's always the same. Late nights, business trips, expensive gifts, promises about their future together. What happened to the others? 2 of them quit when they figured out he was never going to leave his wife. Oh, did Elise not mention that Carter's married, separated technically, but his wife hasn't filed for divorce? She's holding out for a reconciliation. I set my coffee cup down carefully. Elise doesn't know he's married? I doubt it. Carter's very good at compartmentalizing his lies. His wife lives in their house in Wellesley. Carter has a condo downtown for his extracurricular activities. Why are you telling me this? Harper's smile was sharp as a blade. Because Carter Haynes has been draining this company with his personal expenses and payouts to silence misconduct claims. The board of directors is finally paying attention, and they've asked me to compile a comprehensive report on his conduct. What kind of report? The kind that ends careers. I have documentation of inappropriate relationships, misuse of company funds, and a pattern of behavior that opens us up to massive liability. All I need is one more complaint to make it stick. I understood what she was offering. What do you need from me? Evidence that he's been using company resources to conduct his affair with your wife. Hotel receipts, restaurant bills, anything that shows a pattern of corporate funds being used for personal relationships. And if I provide that evidence, Carter Haynes will be unemployed by the end of the month, and your wife will learn some uncomfortable truths about the man she's been risking her marriage for. We shook hands in the parking lot. Harper drove away in her sensible Honda Civic, and I sat in my police cruiser, thinking about the conversation. This wasn't just about my marriage anymore. This was about justice for all the women Carter had manipulated and discarded. That afternoon, I called Jack. "How are your computer skills these days?" "Pretty good." "Why?" "I need you to help me with a research project. Nothing illegal, just thorough." Jack arrived at the house an hour later with his laptop and a determined expression. "What are we looking for?" "Everything we can find about Carter Haynes. Social media, public records, news articles, anything that might be useful." "Dad, are you planning some kind of revenge thing? Because if you are, I'm totally in." "Not revenge, son. Justice. There's a difference." We spent the evening digging through Carter's digital footprint. His LinkedIn profile painted him as a successful executive and community leader. His Facebook page was carefully curated. Photos of charity events, business conferences, and expensive vacations. But Jack found the interesting stuff on Instagram. "Look at this," he said, turning his laptop toward me. "Carter's got a private Instagram account under a fake name. Check out these photos." The pictures told a story that Carter's public persona had carefully hidden. Photos of him with various women at expensive restaurants, luxury hotels, weekend getaways. None of the women appeared in more than 3 or 4 photos, suggesting a pattern of short-term relationships. "Dad, look at this one from last month." It was a photo of Carter and Elise at a restaurant I recognized. Chez Laurent, the most expensive place in town. Elise was wearing a dress I'd never seen before, something that probably cost more than my monthly salary. The caption read, "Good things come to those who wait." When was this taken? Jack checked the metadata. 3 weeks ago, Tuesday night. Wasn't that when Mom said she was working late on the Henderson presentation? Yeah, it was. We found 6 more photos of Carter and Elise together, all taken at expensive venues, all on nights when she told me she was working late. The evidence was mounting. My phone buzzed with a text from Ray. "Found something interesting about your boy Carter. Can you meet me at the Blue Bucket tonight?" The Blue Bucket was the local cop bar, the kind of place where off-duty officers went to complain about their shifts and drink away the day's frustrations. Ray was waiting in a corner booth with a beer and a manila folder. "Your friend Carter's been a busy boy," he said, sliding the folder across the table. "Take a look." The folder contained copies of police reports, credit checks, and financial records. Carter had been pulled over for DUI 6 months earlier. Charges dropped thanks to an expensive lawyer. He'd been sued by 2 former employees for inappropriate conduct, cases settled out of court with confidentiality agreements. His credit report showed a man living far beyond his means. "Here's the interesting part," Ray said, pulling out a bank statement. "Carter's been writing checks to a private investigator. Want to guess what he was investigating?" "Tell me." "You. Tom Bishop, address, employment history, financial records, the works. He's been digging into your background for the past 2 months. I stared at the bank statement, feeling something cold settle in my stomach. Why would he investigate me? Maybe he wanted to know what kind of husband he was stealing a wife from. Or maybe he was looking for dirt to use against you if things got messy. Did he find anything? Ray grinned. Clean as a whistle, partner. 20-year career, no complaints, no financial problems, no skeletons in your closet. Must have disappointed him. I drove home that night with my head spinning. Carter hadn't just seduced my wife. He'd been planning it, researching me, treating my marriage like a hostile takeover. The house was dark except for the light in Elise's temporary bedroom. I could hear her on the phone, voice low and urgent. I know it's complicated, Carter, but Tom knows he's not going to just let this go. I stood outside her door, listening. What do you mean? What kind of man is he? He's my husband. Was my husband. I don't know anymore. A pause. No, he hasn't threatened me, but he's a cop, Carter. He knows how to find things out. What if he... Another pause, longer this time. I can't keep living like this. The kids hate me. My parents don't know what to think. Maybe we should just... I heard footsteps approaching the door and moved quickly toward my own bedroom. But I'd heard enough. Elise was having doubts. Carter was worried about what I might discover. Good. They should be worried. The next morning, Elise came downstairs dressed for work, her face pale and drawn. She'd lost weight in the past week, and there were dark circles under her eyes that makeup couldn't quite hide. Tom, we need to talk. I'm listening. I think I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. I poured myself coffee, taking my time. What kind of mistake? Carter isn't who I thought he was. He's been lying to me. About a lot of things. Such as He's married, Tom. Still married. His wife thinks they're working on a reconciliation. I kept my expression neutral. Is that so? He told me he was divorced. He told me a lot of things that weren't true. She sat down at the kitchen table, her hands shaking. I don't know how this happened. I don't know how I became this person. You became this person by making choices, Elise. Every day for 3 months you chose to lie to me, to lie to our kids, to sneak around with your boss. Those weren't accidents. They were decisions. I know, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't fix this. What if I ended it? What if I told Carter it was over and we tried to work things out? I looked at my wife, really looked at her. She was still beautiful, still the woman I'd fallen in love with in college, but something fundamental had changed. The trust was gone, shattered like that coffee mug Carter had dropped in our kitchen. It's too late for that, Elise. Tom, please. No, you don't get to cheat on me for 3 months, plan a future with another man, and then come crawling back when you realize he's not Prince Charming. That's not how this works. She started crying then, the kind of desperate tears that come when someone realizes they've lost everything that mattered. What happens now? Now you face the consequences of your choices, and Carter faces the consequences of his. She looked up at me through her tears. What does that mean? It means I'm not going to quietly disappear so you two can live happily ever after. Carter Haynes picked the wrong man's wife to seduce. He's about to learn that some people fight back. The next phase of my plan required patience and precision. I wasn't going to destroy Carter Haynes in a fit of rage. I was going to dismantle him systematically, using the same methodical approach I'd used to build a criminal case. Harper Williams proved to be an invaluable ally. Over the next week, she provided me with copies of Carter's expense reports, travel receipts, and credit card statements tied to his corporate account. The pattern was clear. Expensive dinners, luxury hotels, spa treatments, all charged to Haynes and Associates, and all coinciding with his various affairs. The board meeting is scheduled for next Friday, Harper told me during our second coffee meeting. I'll be presenting my findings about Carter's conduct and misuse of company funds. Your documentation will be the centerpiece of my report. What about Elise? What about her? She's an employee who was manipulated by her supervisor. Unless she was aware that he was using company money for their dates, she's a victim, not a perpetrator. I appreciated Harper's clinical approach to the situation. This wasn't about destroying my wife. It was about holding Carter accountable for his pattern of predatory behavior. Jack had been busy with his own research project. He'd managed to identify 3 of Carter's previous affair partners through social media cross-referencing and public record searches. 2 of them still live in the area, he reported. Jennifer Walsh and Susan Chen. Both of them worked for Carter's company. Both of them quit abruptly after their relationships ended. Think they'd be willing to talk? Jennifer might. She's been posting some pretty bitter stuff about corporate executives and workplace maltreatment. Susan's harder to read. She moved to California after she quit, but she's still connected to some of her old coworkers on LinkedIn. I decided to approach Jennifer first. She was working as a freelance graphic designer now, operating out of a small studio downtown. I called her on Tuesday afternoon, identifying myself as a detective investigating workplace maltreatment claims. This is about Carter Haynes, isn't it? She said without preamble. What makes you say that? Because he's the only boss I ever had who belonged in jail. Can we meet in person? This isn't the kind of conversation I want to have over the phone. Jennifer Walsh was a striking woman in her early 30s, with short red hair and the kind of direct gaze that suggested she'd learned some hard lessons about trusting the wrong people. We met at her studio, surrounded by design mock-ups and half-finished projects. Carter destroyed my career, she said, getting straight to the point. I was a senior designer at Haynes and Associates, on track for a promotion to creative director. Then Carter decided I'd be his next conquest. How did it start? The usual way. Late nights working on projects, business dinners that turned personal, expensive gifts that made me feel special. He told me I was brilliant, that I deserved better than my husband, that we had a future together. How long did it last? 8 months. 8 months of sneaking around, lying to my husband, believing Carter's promises about leaving his wife and making me a partner in the agency. Jennifer's laugh was bitter. Then I found out I wasn't the only one. He was seeing at least 2 other women at the same time, including a client's wife. What happened when you confronted him? He fired me. Not officially. That would have been too risky. But suddenly my projects were being reassigned, my ideas were being shot down, my access to important meetings was revoked. I got the message and quit before he could manufacture a reason to terminate me. Did you consider filing a complaint? With who? Carter owned the company. HR reported to him. I talked to a lawyer, but Carter's legal team made it clear that fighting him would be expensive and futile. So I took a settlement and signed a non-disclosure agreement. What if I told you that other women were coming forward? That there might be a way to hold him accountable? Jennifer's eyes lit up with something that looked like hope. I'd say it's about time. What do you need from me? By Thursday, I had statements from both Jennifer and Susan Chen, who'd agreed to participate via video conference from her home in San Francisco. Harper had compiled a comprehensive report documenting Carter's financial improprieties and pattern of maltreatment. The board of directors was scheduled to review her findings on Friday afternoon. But I wasn't content to let corporate justice run its course. Carter Haynes had made this personal when he targeted my wife and invaded my home. He deserved a more direct form of accountability. That's where Jack's technical skills proved invaluable. I've been thinking about Carter's social media presence, Jack said over dinner on Thursday night. He's got this carefully crafted image as a successful businessman and community leader. What if that image got complicated? What do you have in mind? Well, his Instagram account has all those photos of him with different women. What if those photos accidentally became public? What if people started connecting the dots about his pattern of behavior? That would be unfortunate for Carter. Very unfortunate, especially if it happened right before his board meeting. Jack's plan was elegant in its simplicity. He'd created a fake social media account and used it to follow several of Carter's business associates, clients, and board members. Then, using publicly available information, he'd started posting anonymous tips about Carter's behavior, complete with screenshots from Carter's private Instagram account. I'm not hacking anything, Jack assured me. I'm just sharing information that Carter himself posted online. If he didn't want people to see it, he shouldn't have put it on the internet. By Friday morning, Carter's professional reputation was in freefall. His LinkedIn page was flooded with comments from former employees and clients. Local business forums were buzzing with speculation about his conduct. 3 major clients had called emergency meetings to discuss their contracts with Haynes and Associates, and Elise was caught in the middle of it all. She came home Friday afternoon looking like she'd been through a war. Her usually perfect appearance was disheveled, her makeup smeared, her hands shaking as she poured herself a large glass of wine. Carter's been fired, she announced without preamble. Is that so? The board of directors voted unanimously to terminate his employment and remove him from all corporate positions. They're also launching an investigation into his use of company funds and his relationships with employees. Sounds like they take workplace maltreatment seriously. Tom, they know about us, about the affair. It's all going to come out. The restaurants, the hotels, everything. My name is going to be in the newspapers. I felt a moment of sympathy for her. Elise had made terrible choices, but she didn't deserve to be destroyed in the court of public opinion. What did you tell them? The truth. That I didn't know he was using company money. That he lied to me about being divorced. That I was an idiot who threw away her marriage for a man who turned out to be a fraud. And Carter, what's he saying? He's blaming everyone else. Says he's being set up, that his enemies are trying to destroy him. He actually accused me of conspiring with you to ruin his career. That's interesting. Why would he think that? Elise looked at me with something that might have been respect. Because he finally figured out who he was dealing with. Carter thought you were just some small-town cop who'd roll over and let him steal your wife. He didn't realize that you're the kind of man who fights back. And what kind of man is that, Elise? The kind I should have appreciated when I had the chance. That evening, I drove to the Blue Bucket for what I knew would be my last drink as a married man. Ray was waiting at our usual table, along with Malik, a young detective who joined our unit 6 months earlier. Heard your boy Carter had a bad day, Ray said, raising his beer in a mock toast. Couldn't happen to a nicer guy, I replied. Word is he's lawyering up, threatening to sue everyone from the board of directors to the janitor. Says he's going to prove this was all a conspiracy against him. Good luck with that. Hard to prove a conspiracy when you're guilty as sin. Malik leaned forward, his eyes bright with curiosity. Bishop, how'd you do it? How'd you take down a guy like Carter Haynes without breaking any laws? Simple. I let him destroy himself. Guys like Carter always do, eventually. They get arrogant, they get sloppy, they start believing their own lies. All I did was make sure the right people saw the evidence. And your wife? What happens now? I took a long drink of my beer, thinking about the divorce papers I'd filed that afternoon, about the custody arrangements we'd have to work out, about the house that would need to be sold. Now we all live with the consequences of our choices. The bar was filling up with the usual Friday night crowd, cops finishing their shifts, local workers celebrating the end of the work week, couples on dates who still believed in happily ever after. I watched them all, thinking about the life I'd built and lost, about the future I'd have to create from scratch. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This isn't over, Bishop. You have no idea who you're dealing with." I showed the message to Ray, who shook his head in disgust. "Carter? Has to be. Guy just can't accept that he lost. Want me to trace the number?" "No need. Let him make his threats. If he's stupid enough to escalate this, I'll be ready." But as I drove home that night, I couldn't shake the feeling that Carter Haynes wasn't done with me yet. Men like him didn't go quietly into the night. They fought back, and they fought dirty. I was about to learn just how dirty Carter was willing to get. The weekend passed quietly, but I could feel the storm building. Elise spent most of Saturday packing her belongings, preparing to move in with her parents until she could find her own place. Kayla helped her, still barely speaking to me, still convinced that somehow this was all my fault. Jack, on the other hand, had appointed himself as my personal intelligence officer. "Carter's been busy," he reported Sunday morning, showing me his laptop screen. "He's hired a private investigator and a reputation management company. He's also been reaching out to his old contacts, trying to find another job. Any luck? Not much. Word travels fast in the advertising world. Nobody wants to hire a guy who's been fired for misconduct and shady financial dealings. What about the PI? That's the interesting part. The guy he hired specializes in digging up dirt on law enforcement officers. Carter's not just trying to rebuild his reputation, he's trying to destroy yours." I wasn't surprised. Men like Carter always played offense when their backs were against the wall. If he couldn't win legitimately, he'd try to drag me down to his level. "Let him dig," I told Jack. 20 years on the force, clean record, no skeletons in my closet. If Carter wants to waste his money on a fishing expedition, that's his choice. But Carter's next move caught me off guard. Monday morning, I arrived at work to find internal affairs waiting in my office. Lieutenant Sarah Morrison was a tough, no-nonsense investigator who'd earned respect throughout the department for her fairness and thoroughness. "Tom, we need to talk. There's been a complaint filed against you." "What kind of complaint?" "Maltreatment, stalking, and misuse of police resources. The complainant alleges that you've been using department databases and contacts to conduct a personal vendetta against him." I sat down heavily in my desk chair. "Carter Haynes." "That's right. He's provided a detailed statement claiming that you've been harassing him and his associates, accessing confidential information illegally, and using your position as a police officer to intimidate him. Sarah, you know me. You know I wouldn't. I know you're going through a difficult divorce, and I know this Carter guy was involved with your wife. I also know you're smart enough not to do anything that would jeopardize your career." She pulled out a thick folder. "But I have to investigate every complaint that comes through this office. So let's go through this step by step." The next 2 hours were grueling. Morrison went through every database search I'd run, every contact I'd made, every piece of information I'd gathered about Carter. She was thorough, but fair, and by the end of the interview, it was clear that Carter's complaint was baseless. "Everything you did was within department policy," she concluded. "You had legitimate reasons to run background checks on someone who was in your home and had access to your personal information. Your contacts with other agencies were appropriate and professional, and there's no evidence that you used confidential information inappropriately. So the complaint is unfounded?" "The complaint is BS," Morrison said bluntly. "But Tom, be careful. This guy is playing hardball, and he's got resources. He's going to keep coming after you until he finds something that sticks." She was right. Over the next week, Carter escalated his campaign against me. He filed complaints with our mayor's office, the city council, and the state police. He hired a lawyer to send threatening letters to my department. He even tried to get a restraining order against me, claiming I was stalking him. None of it worked. Every investigation cleared me of wrongdoing. Every complaint was dismissed for lack of evidence. But the constant scrutiny was wearing, and I could see it was affecting my colleagues' perception of me. "Guy's like a tick," Ray observed during one of our coffee breaks. "Just keeps burrowing in deeper, hoping to hit something vital." "He's desperate," I replied. Desperate men make mistakes. Carter's biggest mistake came the following Thursday. I was working late, catching up on paperwork, when my phone rang. The caller ID showed Carter's number. Bishop. We need to talk. Carter's voice was slurred. He'd been drinking. I don't think that's a good idea, Carter. Meet me at the construction site on Maple Street. 1 hour. Come alone. Why would I do that? Because if you don't, I'm going to make sure everyone in this town knows what kind of man you really are. I've got photos, Bishop. Photos of you that your wife took. Photos she shared with me when we were laughing about what a pathetic loser she married. The line went dead. I sat there for a moment, processing what Carter had just said. Then I called Jack. Can you meet me at the Maple Street construction site and bring your phone? We might need to record a conversation. Dad, is this safe? Shouldn't you bring backup? Probably. But if I show up with half the police force, Carter will just lawyer up and disappear. This might be our only chance to get him to incriminate himself. The construction site was a half-finished office building, all concrete and steel beams reaching toward the dark sky. Carter was waiting by his BMW, a bottle of expensive whiskey in one hand and his phone in the other. He looked terrible, unshaven, clothes wrinkled, eyes red with exhaustion and alcohol. The past 2 weeks had clearly taken their toll. Bishop, he called out as I approached. Glad you could make it to our little chat. What do you want, Carter? I want my life back. I want my job back. I want you to call off your dogs and let me rebuild what you destroyed. I didn't destroy anything. You did that all by yourself. Bees, Carter's voice echoed off the concrete walls. You orchestrated this whole thing, you and that witch Harper Williams and whoever else you've got in your pocket. You couldn't stand that your wife preferred a real man to some small-town cop with delusions of grandeur. I kept my voice level, professional. Carter, you're drunk. Go home, sleep it off. We can discuss this when you're sober. I'm not going anywhere until you admit what you did, until you admit that you set me up. The only thing I did was catch you screwing my wife in my kitchen. Everything else, your financial problems, your history of maltreatment, your pattern of predatory behavior, that's all on you. Carter took a long drink from his bottle, then threw it against a concrete pillar. It shattered in a spray of glass and whiskey. You think you're so smart, don't you? You think you've won. But I know things about you, Bishop. Things your wife told me when we were in bed together. Things that would destroy your reputation if they got out. Such as how you've been skimming money from seized contraband. Such as how you've been planting evidence to close cases. Such as how you've been taking bribes from local criminals to look the other way. I almost laughed. Carter, you're making things up. And even if you weren't, who's going to believe you? A disgraced executive with a history of lying and maltreatment? People will believe evidence, and I've got evidence. Carter pulled out his phone and showed me the screen. It was a photo of me in what looked like a compromising situation, apparently taking money from someone in a dark alley. The photo was fake, of course, poorly photoshopped, but convincing enough to cause problems if it got into the wrong hands. Nice work, I said. How much did you pay for that? Enough, and there are more where that came from, unless you call off your investigation and let me get on with my life. You're trying to blackmail a police officer, Carter. That's a felony. Prove it! That's when Jack stepped out from behind a concrete pillar, his phone in his hand, recording everything. Already did, I said. Carter's face went white. You son of a witch. You set me up. No, Carter. You set yourself up. Just like you've been doing for years. You're a predator, a liar, and now you're a criminal. And it's all on video. Carter lunged at me, swinging wildly. I sidestepped easily, and he crashed into a pile of construction materials. He came up with a gash on his forehead and rage in his eyes, grabbing a piece of rebar from the ground. I'll end you, Bishop. I'll end you and your whole family. That's when Ray and Malik stepped out of the shadows, tools drawn. Drop the tool, Carter, Ray commanded. Drop it now and put your hands behind your head. Carter looked around wildly, realizing he was surrounded. The rebar fell from his hands, clattering on the concrete. You're under arrest for attempted blackmail, making terrorist threats, and assault with a deadly tool, I said, pulling out my handcuffs. You have the right to remain silent. I suggest you use it. As we led Carter away in handcuffs, I felt something I hadn't experienced in weeks. Satisfaction. Not happiness. My marriage was still over. My family was still broken. My life was still in shambles. But justice had been served. Carter Haynes had finally faced the consequences of his actions. The next morning, I sat in my kitchen with a cup of coffee and the local newspaper. The headline read, "Local Executive Arrested on Blackmail Charges." The article detailed Carter's arrest, his history of maltreatment, and his systematic misuse of corporate funds. Elise appeared in the doorway, fully dressed and carrying a suitcase. "I saw the news," she said quietly. "Carter's going to prison, probably for several years between the blackmail charge and the financial crimes." "Good. He destroyed a lot of lives, including his own." She set her suitcase down. "Tom, I know it's too late for us. I know I threw away the best thing in my life for a man who turned out to be a monster, but I want you to know that I'm sorry, truly, deeply sorry. I know you are, Elise. Will you ever be able to forgive me?" I looked at the woman I'd loved for more than half my life, the mother of my children, the person who'd shared my dreams and built a future with me before throwing it all away. "Maybe someday, but not today." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I understand. I hope you can find happiness again. You deserve better than what I gave you." After she left, I sat alone in the house we'd shared for 15 years, listening to the silence. My phone buzzed with messages from friends and colleagues congratulating me on Carter's arrest. Jack called to check on me. Ray invited me out for a celebratory drink, but I didn't feel like celebrating. I felt empty, drained, like a man who'd won a war but lost everything that mattered in the process. Still, as I looked around the kitchen where this whole nightmare had started, where I'd caught my wife with her lover, where I'd made the decision to fight back instead of quietly accepting my fate, I felt something else too. Pride, self-respect, the knowledge that when Tom Bishop was betrayed and humiliated, he didn't just roll over and take it, he fought back, and he won. Carter Haynes had thought he could waltz into my life, steal my wife, and walk away without consequences. He'd thought being rich and powerful made him untouchable. He'd been wrong. And now he was going to spend the next few years in a prison cell thinking about the red Rolex that had started it all, and the small-town cop who'd refused to be played for a fool. Funny thing about timepieces, doesn't matter how much they cost. When your time's up, it's up.